Once you've read the instructions and watched the tutorial videos, you're ready to get started on the first project. Let's go into Dreamweaver. When you open up Dreamweaver, the interface is going to have a welcome screen that has some different options. You should also see over to the right a CSS panel and a files window down below. Anytime we open up Dreamweaver, the first thing we're going to want to do is set up a new site. We talked about this in the lecture. I'm going to go up to the top and say Site, New Site. Remember that when I set up a new site, basically I'm just telling Dreamweaver where all my files will be stored on the desktop. This one I'm going to call Intro to HTML. And then I'm going to locate my root folder on my desktop, or your Documents folder, or wherever you happen to be storing it. So this is going to be my root folder. Yours might be called HTML Intro, or whatever you've changed the name to after you download the files. Hit Choose. That's the only thing we need to set in here. We can hit Save. Now notice that over in the Files panel, I should see my site as my root folder with an Images folder and a Welcome to Blooms.docx. The Images folder contains all of the images you have to use as options for this project. My project has an HTML file already in it. Yours will not have that. Alright, so once we've got our site set up, we're going to start a new HTML file. I can click Create New HTML on my welcome screen, or I can go to File, New, and then select HTML. Once I have this window open, there's a few things you need to look at. Make sure that you're working in split screen. If yours opens up split vertically rather than horizontally the way mine is, you can go under View and change split vertically or horizontally right here. I prefer to work split horizontally, so I'm going to leave this how it is. First thing we're going to do before we start working with any code or any content is we're going to change the title to our document. This is our Intro to HTML. The title is not actually the name of the file. This is just what's going to show up at the top of your browser window. Next, let's save. I can either use Command S for save, or I can go to File, Save. The home page of every website is titled index.html, so let's get started titling your files that way now. Your root folder should be saved with your first and last name, but everything else can be titled appropriately, such as index. Index just means the browsers know that that's the first page of the site that they should load. Next, we're ready to import some content. Today we're only working with content such as images and text, and that's it. We aren't using any structural elements yet. If you have the Word document open, you can navigate to that now. This is the Welcome to Blooms.docx file. I'm going to select all of this text, and I can either copy and paste, or I can actually drag it over. When you copy and paste from Word, you may get some issues from time to time, so it may be better to actually drag it over. Now that this is in here, I can start styling my text. Let's look at our HTML code. As you can see, we have a doc type up at the top. Below that starts our HTML tag. Here's our opening HTML and closing HTML tag. Below that is the head. In the head information we have metadata, which will be in the future keywords and descriptions, but for now it includes our title, Intro to HTML, which notice is in an opening and closing title tag. After that we have the body. Also notice there's an opening and closing body tag. Inside the body tag is where all the visual information for your website is going to be stored. You can see up here that it's in code view. It doesn't have any tags to tell the browser what type of information it is. This is basically naked text. And then down below in my design view, I can see all of my text here. Properties window down here at the very bottom displays all of the options I have for my text. Make sure you're clicked on the HTML tab and not the CSS tab. Let's start out by making this Welcome to Blooms and Bulb line into a heading. I'm going to select this text, go right after it, hit Enter, That moves the "we carry a variety of plants," basically the rest of the text, moves it down to the next line, and leaves "Welcome to Blooms and Bulbs" by itself. If you look up in the code view, notice that now, just from hitting enter, Dreamweaver assumes that I'm making this into a paragraph, and it's added the opening and closing paragraph tags. If I want to change it to a heading, all I have to do is select the text, go down into my Properties window, and choose Heading 1. Notice by default it's going to get bigger and it becomes bold. Hopefully you've watched all of the Lynda tutorials, so all of the different headings, lists, and paragraphs are going to make sense to you. Alright, next thing we're going to do is start dividing this up into paragraphs. So I'm back in my Word document. I can see where it's split. So the next line starts from daylilies to daisies. You can go down into my text and find that. It's right here. So I'm going to move that on to the next line. There is a sample file available to you under your resources, but try to design yours a little bit different from the sample. Use your creativity. Even though we aren't using structure at this time, you can still arrange things in a pleasing manner. So I've moved that on to the next line, and then I'm also going to check and see where the next or final paragraph starts. It starts with "Our staff." Here's the last one. "Our staff includes," so I'm going to move that on to the next line as well. Notice now in my code view I have 3 paragraphs. Basically that means they start with an opening and closing paragraph each. Okay, next let's make a list. I'm going to take this paragraph or this sentence here that says we also stock a diverse selection of trees, shrubs, tropicals, water plants, and ground covers. I'm going to turn this sentence into a list. So right after we also stock a diverse selection of, I'm going to click there, use a colon, and then hit enter to go to the next line, at which point I'm going to go down to my properties window, and I either have an unordered list, which is a bulleted list, and the code for that is going to be UL for unordered list, or I have an ordered list, which the code is OL, and this would be a numbered list. I'm going to make this into a bulleted list. So I click bulleted list, just like I would in a word processing program like Word, and then I go up and I can look at my code. Here's my first line is in paragraph tags. The next line starts with a UL for unordered list, and then it's automatically put in an LI for list item. If I go down to my design view and hit enter, it's going to automatically have added another list item, and see that we still have our opening and closing tag. Simply hitting enter down in design view is going to put each one onto the next line. And finally, I'm ready to finish my list. So I'm going to move this down to the next line and uncheck my list button. And now this last sentence has been put into another separate paragraph using opening and closing paragraph tags. Next, let's make another heading. I'm going to take this sentence here and make this into a heading level 3. Basically, you're creating a hierarchy on your page with what's important. So "Welcome to Blooms and Bulbs" is the most important line on my page. Next, I have paragraphs. Even the list is contained inside of paragraph tags before and after it. And then I move down to my H3, which means it's less important than the H1, but still important because it has a heading assigned to it. Continue practicing on your own, setting lists, headings, and paragraphs. Next thing I'm going to show you is how to insert images, and then I'm going to leave you on your own to finish this assignment. There is a banner already made for the assignment, so I'm going to click enter right before "Welcome to Blooms and Bulbs," and then just use my up arrow to go back to the first line. Notice in my code, it now entered an AND, NBSP, and the semicolon. This is the HTML code for a space. There's a couple ways to insert images into your document. One way is to simply drag and drop from your Files panel. Another way is to go to your Insert tab and click on the Insert button, Insert Image button. Thirdly, you can go up to the top to Insert and then choose Image. Any of these three methods will work fine for you. So I'm going to go into my Images folder, navigate to the Blooms and Bulbs banner, and hit Choose. Alt text is important to put in for accessibility and SEO purposes. SEO is search engine optimization. So I'm going to give this image a title. Leave the long description blank. We don't have a long description for our image at this time. Hit OK, and the image appears on the screen. One thing to notice is in our code view, here's the code for our image. It starts with IMG and then SRC for source. We actually want to put a block level element around our image as well. Block elements are going to include paragraphs, headings, or lists. Right now there's just an empty space inside these H1 tags. I'm going to delete that, and I'm actually going to move my image, the code for my image. I'm going to select this whole line, and I'm going to move it in between the opening and closing H1 tag. So now, according to the web browsers and search engines, this image is categorized as a heading level 1, the same as the title below it. Remember, every image should have a block element around it, so it's going to have a heading, a paragraph, or a list around it. Let's insert an image into a paragraph. I'm going to scroll down to one of these lower paragraphs, click in here, or maybe right at the beginning of the paragraph, and this time I'll try dragging and dropping. I'll take this image that says Rose Bloom, drag it over here, and simply drop it in. Again, my alt text needs to be put in. So right now the Rose Bloom has been dropped into place. It did go slightly out of place where I wanted it to originally go, so I can drag it and move it. So now it's going right at the beginning of this paragraph. So now what if I want my paragraph to line up with my image? I can click on my image, and in the Properties window, I have alignment. So I can go in and I can say align left, and immediately all my text should pop into place alongside of it. If I need some space in between my image and my text, again, click on your image, and in your Properties window, you have vertical and horizontal space. I can type in, say, 10 to horizontal space, and notice that it spaces everything out a little bit. Next week when we start working with CSS, you'll probably use CSS for this, but for now you can use the Properties window for any kind of styling. That's really it, all I'm going to show you for today. You're on your own to finish this activity based on the instructions, but basically all you're going to be putting in is going to be images, text, and then tagging everything appropriately. Before we get into structure next week, you have to be comfortable with tagging all of your content with those block elements we discussed, which remember are headings, paragraphs, and lists. The final thing I'm going to show you is how to preview this in a browser. So if I go up to the top and see there's a little world or globe icon that when I roll over says Preview or Debug in Browser. If I click on that, I can choose a browser to view in. If you don't have all of the browsers available to you, then click Edit Browser List, and you can add the browsers yourself. Right now I'm just going to preview this page in Safari. It's reminding me that I need to save, and then Safari opens up and I can actually see how this website would look in a browser. We aren't using structural elements, so your text probably will just keep going down the page. You can use line breaks if you'd like, which is covered in one of the lynda.com tutorials. But that would really be the only way to constrain your text at this time. Try to have fun with this assignment, and please email me if you have any questions. Good luck!